In 1973, Federal Express had $5,000 left in its checking account. The fuel bill due Monday? $24,000. If that bill went unpaid, the planes would not fly. And a delivery company whose planes do not fly is not a company. It is a graveyard with a logo. Just months earlier, this had been the most ambitious startup in America. 14 jets, 25 cities. An audacious promise. Your package delivered overnight, anywhere in the country. On its first night of operations, the entire network moved exactly 186 packages. Then the oil crisis hit.
Fuel prices exploded. By late 1973, Federal Express was losing up to $1 million a month. The founder, Fred Smith, had burned through his family inheritance and every investor dollar he could raise. Now, there was $5,000 left, against a $24,000 bill, due Monday. What Fred Smith did next, his own executives could not believe. But first, you need to see what he was supposed to do.
Open any business textbook. The playbook for a company running out of cash is clear, and it is clear because it works. Step 1. Protect your remaining cash. $5,000 is not much, but it is payroll, it is negotiating leverage. A company with cash is alive. A company at zero is dead. Step 2. Negotiate with your creditors. Call the fuel supplier. Ask for 2 more weeks. Creditors deal with struggling clients every day, and a customer who survives is worth more than a corpse that defaulted. Partial payment now, the rest later. This works.
It is how companies in trouble buy time. Step 3. Go back to your investors. Show them the growth numbers. Packages were increasing every single week. The service worked. The market was real. This was a fuel price problem, not a business problem. And Fred Smith did exactly that. He flew to Chicago and pitched General Dynamics, a defense giant that had already backed the company, for one more injection of cash. They said no. The banks had said no. Now the boardroom said no. Every rational door was closed, and the rational playbook had 1 page left. Call the lawyers. Prepare for bankruptcy. Wind it down cleanly. Any rational founder standing in that airport on that Friday flies home to Memphis and starts making those calls. Fred Smith looked at the departures board and chose a different city.
He flew to Las Vegas with the company's last $5,000. The money for payroll. The money his 400 employees were counting on. He walked into a casino and sat down at a blackjack table. Think about what that means. Blackjack is a game where the house has the edge. Every textbook, every advisor, every board member would call this exactly what it looks like. Gambling away the company's final breath. This story comes from Roger Frock, the company's general manager, the man who lived through that weekend. As Frock tells it, he checked the account on Monday morning and found something impossible: $32,000. He asked Smith where the money came from. Smith's answer, word for word: "The meeting with the General Dynamics board was a bust, and I knew we needed money for Monday. So I took a plane to Las Vegas and won $27,000. Frock was horrified. He asked how Smith could risk their last $5,000. Smith's reply is the key to this entire case. What difference did it make?
Without the funds for the fuel companies, we couldn't have flown anyway. Hold that sentence, because it changes everything. Time to put this decision on the table and cut it open. First question: did Smith know something the rest of us don't? At the blackjack table? No, nothing. He was not a card counter. He had no system, no edge. Against the casino, Fred Smith was exactly as powerless as you or me. Remember that, because it decides the verdict. But he did understand one thing better than almost anyone. He understood what that $5,000 was actually worth. Here is the cold math. The bill was 24. The account
held 5.
5,000 does not pay a $24,000 bill. It does not pay it slowly. It does not pay it partially enough to keep jet fuel flowing. Below the survival threshold, money loses its meaning. That $5,000 looked like an asset. It was already ash. That is what Smith meant. We couldn't have flown anyway. Keeping the cash safe had a 100% chance of ending in the same place. Shut down on Monday. Now run the numbers on the insane option. Blackjack has a house edge. Play long enough and you always lose. But Smith did not need to play long. He needed one violent, improbable swing. 5,000 into 24,000 in one weekend. Low probability. Real probability. Call it a 10 or 20% chance of survival versus a 0% chance of survival in his pocket. A guaranteed death or a probable one. When those are the options, the reckless move is the only rational move left. But before you crown the man a genius, here is what the legend leaves out. The $27,000 bought exactly 1 week of fuel. 1 week. What actually saved Federal Express came later. A $24.5 million funding round. A $27.5 million loan. Employees who quietly held their own paychecks so the company could breathe. Profitability finally arrived in 1975. 2 years and $30 million of losses later. The blackjack win saved a weekend. The boring, unglamorous machinery of finance saved the company. And one more thing the legend hides. For every Fred Smith who walked to that table and won, there were 1,000 founders who made the same bet, lost quietly, and took their companies down with them.
Nobody writes books about them. You only know this story because the cards fell his way. So, genius or luck? The case for genius. The threshold logic was flawless. Smith understood that $5,000 below a $24,000 deadline is worth 0, and that a negative odds bet is still the best bet on the board when every other door is locked. The decision to play was, strictly speaking, rational. The case for luck. The decision only looks brilliant because he won. He had no edge, no information, no skill advantage over the house. The exact same reasoning, with one different card, produces a bankrupt company, 400 lost jobs, and a cautionary tale about a founder who gambled away his employees' payroll. Our standard here is simple. Genius is when the logic works before you know the outcome. Smith's logic justified taking the risk. It could not deliver the win. The cards did that. The verdict? Reckless and lucky. The most defensible reckless move in business history, but reckless all the same. That's my verdict. What's yours? If you were holding your company's last $5,000 on that Friday night, would you have walked to the table? The comments are open. Court is adjourned.